folks, welcome ye all to yet another podcast of mine. Another Friday has caught up with us, people. Yes, it has. And as I predicted last week on last week's podcast, the PlayStation Showcase happened yesterday, and it was a glorious one as well, people. It wasn't just your average state of play. It was a proper showcase that they put on. The man himself even turned up and gave a little bit of a talk, but he only talked for the best part of maybe a minute. And then he said, let's get into the games. And I don't know why I'm forgetting his name. Ryan? You know who I mean. You wouldn't forget Phil Spencer's name, would you? But anyway, it was a cracking showcase. I thought it was really, really good. It spanned a lot of different games. It did, well, I say that. It did not go too... Well, there was one game I think that was quite kiddish, and the rest of them were all kind of for the older player, pretty much. Maybe with the exception of a couple of them might be sort of PG-12 type stuff, but they really went for some really heavy hitters in there, and I was really impressed. And there was a couple of surprises. It wasn't anything that made you go, holy shit, you know, unless you were that excited to see God of War's trailers and all that sort of thing. So we're going to break it down like I always do with these things. And I will put the footage up behind me where I have found it. And hopefully talk long enough for you to see a bit of the footage as well. Obviously, you know, if you're that interested, you'll probably have gone onto the interwebs, people, and viewed it that way with the sound and the volume and everything else rather than me talking over it. But, you know, hey, we all like my opinions, don't we? I think. Well, what are you doing here if you don't? You know what I mean? So I don't think we're going to talk about my week this week. I think we're going to crack straight to it. Now, I will, as always, people, put the time codes in the description below now that I know how to do that, because then you can skip to the bit you actually want to see rather than listen to me rambling on. Well, you know, who doesn't want to listen to me rambling on? Anywho, I will put the time codes in the description below. So, shall we get straight to it, people, without much of ado? Let's crack straight in, shall we? I have my usual list on my telephone machine. So the whole thing kicked off... Well, it was weird, actually. The whole thing kicked off with this weird... I won't show you it, but this weird intro that... Because it came up and it said a couple of messages sort of in black... Just in white writing on a black background. And then it said, all footage captured is on a PlayStation 5. And then it went into this trailer. And I was like, Jesus, that looks good. Only about 10 seconds later to think, hang on a minute, that's fucking real people. That's not that's not graphics. What's happening? So it was kind of threw me a little bit that they put that everything captured on a PS5 message up. And then what they did was actually do just one of these, you know, best play adverts with actual people in it running around and splashing colours everywhere. And then after, you know, a minute of that, we did then start delving into the games. Now, here was the thing, right? This was a major surprise. I don't think I've seen anybody confirming or rumouring that this was happening. And the first thing that we saw was Knights of the Old Republic remake happening on PlayStation 5. Now, I don't remember seeing exclusive to PlayStation 5, but it did feel that way. I feel... Right, look, I don't have a huge amount of... Well, I don't have any. I don't have any knowledge of the Knights of the Old Republic other than I've seen a little bit of gameplay footage on it, because I think it actually hit... Did it not hit the back compat program from the original Xbox? I think it did, if I'm not getting my games mixed up. And I just, before recording this, bobbed on to see if that's what I was remembering, and it seemed to be the guy playing it seemed to be what I'd seen go on the back compat for the Xbox. And I think the original was a BioWare game, I feel like. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that it was a BioWare that made the original Knights of the Old Republic. So it's not Knights of the Old Republic 2, it's not an extension of it, it is a remake of the original Knights of the Old Republic. And, I mean, for me, that's pretty exciting, because the amount of praise and press that game gets to this day about just how extraordinarily good it is from both a storytelling perspective and RPG perspective. It is probably, I mean, I think people will probably say it's the best RPG in space, and probably say it is, yes, better than the Mass Effects that came later from the same people, if I've got my companies right. Now, it isn't, so far as I could tell, it isn't BioWare remaking Knights of the Old Republic, but I'm actually forgetting what studio popped up. I did not see a BioWare sign. Again, if it pops up behind me or somebody can correct me on it, then that's fine. Do that in the description below if you want to. Or you'll be shouting at the screen going, you muppet, it just came up saying BioWare behind you. But I'm pretty sure it didn't feel like it was BioWare. But it was a big shocker, you know. It wasn't, they didn't show any gameplay, they didn't show any of that sort of stuff, but they did just had this trailer, woman talking over it, Star Wars-y vibes to it, lightsaber. Ooh, it was all there. Tingles, people, tingles. So I'm going to have to apologise for the lighting. For some reason, it's gone very dark outside, and suddenly the TV's now taken control of the the lighting again. But he won't mind, people. I'll have more footage behind me than you care anyway. I'll be a little thumbnail in the corner by this point. So I'm super excited for that. I'm actually half tempted to go and buy the original one and play through it. But there's a part of me thinking, wait and play the remake when it finally happens, because looking at the gameplay footage I was looking at, it is very, very old now. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of fun in there, but I just feel like there's other things I can play and enjoy that are sort of newer, and, you know, I don't think I need to be going that and delving deeply into that older game at the moment. So, you know, I'll chew it over, and I don't want to ruin it, you know, like, you know, scudder yourself with it, and then the new one comes out. However, they did interview I don't know if he was the director, but one of the lead devs on it, and he did say it's going to be a long time before we see anything about this game from this point on. They just wanted to announce and show this little, you know, teaser trailer about the fact that they are going to be on with this game and they're going to be building it. So I think realistically, you're going to be looking at least 2 years before you see any more about this game. Probably 3 years before you even see the game. If they're working from the ground up, it could even be 4 years. I mean, it could be one of those that's quite near the end of the life cycle of these systems, rather than, you know, in the middle. But you never know. But it is, by all accounts, a pretty massive game, I think, because it was a massive sort of space RPG at the time. So I don't think it's going to be something that's built. You know, KOTOR was not built in a day. I just said, I hate it when people call it KOTOR, and I've just called it KOTOR. Knights of the Old Republic, people, it takes 2 seconds to say it. You don't need to abbreviate it. So, super exciting. I was really chuffed to see that flash up. That was the kickoff for the show. Next up, this was Project Eve. Now this popped up and everyone was like, well, I was chatting to Aaron Brew as I do. Flagging's up to you all. You'll notice this drink is actually a lot more empty than it is normally when I record these things, and that's because I sat watching a few of the trailers just again before I recorded this, just to refresh my mind on some of the details that were in a few of the ones that I really liked. Cheers. So, yeah, this flashed up, and I was like, said to Aaron Brew on the text, I was like, oh, this got huge Final Fantasy VII remake sort of battle vibes, and it was awesome. It looked beautiful. The action was outstanding. I mean, I jotted down that it was kind of Final Fantasy VII crossed with Resi, because it had, like, the creatures she was fighting were these sort of, like, I don't know, squiddy-like things and you know, really gooey, you know, like proper Resident Evil type enemy type stuff, you know, like, and I thought, I love the vibe of this game. I've got no idea what's going on. The only thing I would say is that, and maybe it's just not me understanding the Japanese way of doing things, but it sounded very monotone and not very exciting on the voice acting sounded just so one level, like it was just unbelievable. I was like, what, how? It was like there was no emotion to any of it, but maybe that's just the way the Japanese stuff's done. But you know, we'll get our English dubbed over version anyway, so yeah. But it looked outstanding. I mean, the way that she was throwing herself around the place looked like there was magics involved, and then she had I mean, I'm assuming you're going to get multiple swords and stuff in the game. Don't know whether it's I mean, from that, I don't think we could tell if it was an RPG or whether it was a linear sort of, maybe a Resi with a sword type game. You know, like maybe it is that sort of game. But I mean, it felt like it would be an open world type thing. But at the same time, the way that she was running through areas, you think, well, maybe it's not. Maybe it is quite linear. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But it was superb. The trailer was quite long as well. And I'm hoping I've got enough to say about it for you to see enough of the trailer. But for me, the character was gorgeous, the world was gorgeous, the enemies were just gooey and nasty, and, well, some of them looked really awesome to be fighting. The bosses looked incredible, you know, and it seemed to be this sort of, she seemed to be talking to someone as she was going through the game, like the guy who was saying with the monotone sort of voice acting. That there was a guy speaking to her as she was running around. They were having a conversation, so I'm not sure how that was working, whether he's someone guiding you through the world or, that sort of stuff. But it did look incredible. The music was very Final Fantasy-esque as well. I mean, it was JRPG all over it. Whether it is an actual RPG or whether it's a linear type thing, I guess we'll find out later. But, I mean, it looked absolutely superb. I mean, I was actually quite blown away by it. I had heard of Project Eve before, but I didn't piece it together. That's what we were seeing until we were quite far into it. And I thought, this could be this Project Eve thing, actually, because I thought we'd seen something briefly on Project Eve before. It didn't come as a surprise that it existed, put it that way. And I don't know, there's a part of me that feels like that Unreal Engine, Unreal Uncharted, I was going to say that, the Unreal Engine 5 demo that they did on the PlayStation 5, if you remember that. I feel like that might have been where Project Eve sort of spun from. That's where my mind's with it, but maybe I've got something mixed up and crossed over there. I feel like Project Eve spun off of some sort of demo or something. But anyway, where it's come from, I don't care. It looks amazing. I mean, it was probably the one that shone the brightest in the whole night for me, that game. I mean, it totally was like, whoa, holy shit, this looks incredible. Up there with God of War. We'll talk about that last though. So yeah, super excited for Project Eve. That looks absolutely awesome. Next up was Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which we've seen a bit of before. I think we saw a bit of it at the Xbox showcases. And this is from the people that made Borderlands. Do you know, when they first sort of showed it off, I was like, well, I actually quite fancy that because it's not guns and it's swords and dragons and knights and blah. But it is guns. So it is knights and dragons and swords and blah, but it's also shit tons of guns. So then I'm like, well, it's just Borderlands with dragons, so maybe I'll not bother. But that's just me. I understand that Borderlands is a super, super popular thing. And I played Borderlands and I had a bit of fun in it and it was fine. The humour in it was good and, but I didn't, I don't think I ever played 2 or... I think there was a 3, wasn't there? Anyway, I don't think I ever played the others, but I might be having a memory lapse, people. I am ye old person now. But I have to say, the humour in it looks great. The storytelling in it looks great. The graphic style is clearly the same engine that they use for Borderlands. I mean, everything about that game smells like it's going to be a success. So, I'm not having to go at it whatsoever, other than I would have preferred it to not have guns in it. And they do something that was just magics and swords and blah. It does have magics in it, I think, from the trailer that will probably be behind me. But yeah, there was magics and stuff in it, I think. So you've got magics and guns and swords and you've got everything. But for me, if you're going to try and step away from Borderlands universe and go into a Knights and Dragons universe, then leave the guns behind. And you can have a mechanic that gives you a gazillion different types of sword, rather than, or axes or whatever, melee weapons, instead of having the gun side of it. Because for me, it doesn't make any sense to have dragons and knights and blah and, But then, hey, maybe that's the whole Tina's, whole Wonderland thing. Maybe there's a reason for it all. Well, there will be a reason for it all. But for me, I would have preferred it not to have guns in it. But anyway, it looks super, super pretty. Really nice graphic style. Really great voice acting. Really fun. It looks really dynamic. I mean, everything about it smells success. So, yeah, I mean, I'm wishing it all the best. I'm not overly sure it's something that I will actually play, though. Next up was another WoW for me, which was the Forespoken. And, well, firstly, the biggest WoW was the release date that came at the end, because it was like spring 2022. So I was like, holy shit, that's really close. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's just come up behind me there. And again, I couldn't quite make... Okay, so it starts off with it's a female protagonist. I'm assuming that's the only option of protagonist you will have. So it's a female protagonist. Maybe not. It might be an RPG where you can create your own character. I have no idea, people, but we'll assume that it's a female protagonist. And it seems to be all kicking off in current times, in this day and age. She's getting bullied, all sorts of things going on. And then this portal opens and she gets dragged through to sort of, the medieval times and, knights, dragons, all that sort of thing, monsters and blahs. And she's got this sort of mechanical thing. Well, it's not a mechanical thing. It's like a massive snake-like bracelet wrapped around her forearm that seems to be talking and communicating with her. And then it sort of kicks into all this action. And I mean, it looks, through the whole trailer, I didn't see a weapon, right? So it looks like the entire mechanics of fighting are based around your body and your magics. I mean, I don't think I saw punching. Oh, now I'm looking back. But I did just specifically look to see if there was any weapons, and I didn't see any. It all looked to be that it was all these magics and mind control stuff that she was doing. And she talks about the mind control stuff as well while she's sort of having fun with it. And there was a whole load of swinging and traversal stuff going on to make your way around the world. And again, I was like, is this an RPG or is this because the story looks so wrapped and tight. And this is because it turns out that one of the lead writers on this game is Amy Hennig. And Amy Hennig, of course, brought us Uncharted 3, certainly, and I think 2. Well, 3 anyway. Uncharted 3, she was writing the Star Wars game that then got with Visceral, before Visceral got shut down. And she's an incredible storyteller. She's really, really good at telling a tight, neat story. And I saw an interview with her where she was talking about the fact that she likes games that have got a set frame of time, like 7 hours or whatever, because if you go around the globe and ask people how many open world games you've finished, most people don't finish them because they're so big and there's so much to do. They're like, oh, and they get bored of it and they put it down. There's so many people that don't finish games, it's ridiculous. So she's a big believer in telling a nice tight story, 7 hours of maybe putting some replayability in there, but not, we'll get back to like Dead Space and Uncharted and all those sort of games where you've got a nice tight story, great gameplay in between. For my liking, Uncharted 4 was too long. They stretched it out far too much. They put too much of The Last of Us in it. And, Amy Hennig was, so far as we can tell, was actually pushed out elbowed out the door when she was actually trying to do with it what she would have done with the Uncharted, what she did with Uncharted 3. And by all accounts, she was caught of, no thanks, we want to do this with it. And it ended up being not as good as the others because of it, because they opened it up too much. They put too much of The Last of Us emphasis inside of it. It lost its fun, its drive. It's, it's still a great game, don't get me wrong, right? But it is not the best one. And if you're going to make one for the PS4, which is the only one, well, we've got Lost Legacy as well. But anyway, you know what I'm getting at. They opened it up too much, didn't keep it tight, didn't keep it, it was a bit all over the place. And there was things that, walking around smelling your own farts kind of going on, as my son likes to put it. So, for me, I'm super excited that Amy Hennig is involved in this game. It also, the fact she is involved with it doesn't mean it's not an RPG, but it speaks to me that maybe it is. But if she's only on the side of the actual storytelling mechanic of the story, or storytelling element of it, then it could just be that it is an RPG, but the story part of it that drives you through the middle of it all is what she's involved with. But it felt a little bit like, looking at the trailer, it did feel like it is a bit of a platformer. Like if you're going to be spinning around and flipping over and traversing a world, it's usually a slightly tighter world, and it's usually got a route to take, and if not, only a couple, like Uncharted and other such games, and even Dead Space and stuff like that. There's usually only a couple of paths you can take, and that's that. My God, it's getting dark in here. What's happening, people? I'll have to live with it. I'll have to try and find it. I didn't put this little light on in front of me today, but we'll have to live with it now. I don't want to go tampering with stuff and then screw up the recording. Well, the thing is, I looked out the window because there's a little ring light down here which can beam a little bit of extra light toward me, which is why I bought it. But I looked at it, I thought, I won't plug it in because it was bright enough outside, but it's gone really cloudy. So even though I've got a light there and the big lights above me, the TV's still pushing its light out. Could have turned that. I've turned that up a little bit. That could have been turned down, I suppose, brightness. Anyway, you're probably better looking at those than me, and we've probably got all the trailers up behind me. Anyway, Forespoken, I'm digressing, people. Forespoken, it looks absolutely awesome. The action looks great. The magic fighting looks great. The voice actress was doing a fantastic job, and there was loads of humor and fun in the. She was sort of talking like it was in-game conversation as well as in the cutscenes. So she was having a laugh while she was going, oh my God, I can fire shit out my hands. Oh my God, I can, So there was a lot of fun to it as well. So it looks like it's going to be quite an enjoyable experience. And probably got a bit of heart to it. There'll be sad bits and blah, but the whole emphasis of it looks like they want it to be a fun game, not something that gets overly dark. So it looks really, really cool. I mean, it looks like from what we were seeing, it looks like this big build up to the big bad, who is it sounds like you appear in this world and you're the chosen one, and you've got to go and do all of these things and then defeat the big bad guy at the end. And it's not an original concept story wise, but it looks fantastic to play. It's what you do in between. Like, there's always going to be I am the chosen one, there's always going to be there's the big bad. It's what you do in between that matters. So I'm really looking forward to that. And spring 2022, people, that is right on the doorstep, isn't it? I mean, that's not far away at all. Just about to go into the autumn, people. So yeah, really, really exciting. I was really, really at that and Project Eve. Very excited, people. Yeah, I mentioned everything there. Next up, I'm not going to spend any time with this, and I haven't downloaded any footage for it either. They showed off a bit of Rainbow Six Extraction, which is out January 2022. It's not really the sort of thing we talk about on the channel, because it's more, well, I mean, to be fair, I've never been into Rainbow Six or anything. It is a great franchise. There's loads of people into it. It looks like it's DLC for the Rainbow Six that's already out there, and it looks sort of monsters and zombies and blah. Well, maybe I will have put a bit of footage in, but it does. It looks like, they've put a horror element into Rainbow Six, and you can go fight, demony type things, people, demony type things. So anyway, January 2022. Alan Wake Remastered, people. Now, we knew this was coming because I already had this jotted down for notes for next week's podcast. And then, so we already had a leak that Alan Wake Remastered was coming. And then it was confirmed by Sam Lake, who's the main man at that studio. And I think it was the day after he confirmed it. I'm pretty sure it was. And he put a great message up on it was a fan site that he put it up on. I apologize, I've forgotten the fan site's name, but the fan site that's been a Alan Wake fan site for years and years and years and years, going way back. He decided to put the official notice on there to tell people that it was an official game and it was coming. And I think that's a really nice thing to do when it's the community that have sort of pushed this game continuously, and the amount of times that Alan Wake 2 has been asked for, and we're hoping it'll actually happen at some point. So yeah, so he did confirm it. It's the first time ever that you'll be able to have played Alan Wake on a PlayStation, because this game was an Xbox exclusive and has been since the dawn of its conception. And clearly whatever was holding it there has expired, run out, blah. And he's saying that, they've kept the original experience as close as they can and just try to upgrade the graphics and such like. I'm hoping that this is true, because as I remember, when it hit back compat, there started to become an issue with some of the music in it, because there is proper music in that game from bands. And I feel like they might have updated the game with different tracks because there was a problem licensing original music. I'm hoping that's not the case, because there's a lot of sort of memory type stuff with that game, and the music that he chose for that game was superb. So I'm hoping that they've managed to get the licensing nailed down for all the original music in the game, because it's superb. And some of it happens in the midst of fighting and all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's for it not to be there, a lot of the nostalgia will be kind of lost for me a little bit. So we'll see, we'll find out. But yes, I think it's PS4 and PS5 actually. So it's remastered for both, and of course it is on Xbox as well, X and S and One, I think. So yeah, I'm really excited for it to come there. It's going to be a whole new trophy list for me to go and get. I think I don't know. I'll wait and see. I might play it on the PlayStation actually. Just might be something I go for the platinum on. I don't know. Like most things, I might wait for Digital Foundry to say where the nicest place to play it is, but we'll see what happens. I do still seem to be slightly fanboying all over my Xbox Series X at the minute, but I still love my PS5 though, don't get me wrong. but you know, I go swings and roundabouts with it. You know, I'll spend months and months on the PlayStation 5, and then I'll go, I'm into the Series X now and play that for ages. So yeah, super excited for Alan Wake Remaster. What was after that, people? Lost me track. Oh, right, okay, yeah. I'm definitely not showing any footage of this. Grand Theft Auto 5 on PS5 is coming on March 2022. That game is going to fast become worse than Skyrim and Resi 4 for being put on platforms. So, anyway, March 2022 for Grand Theft Auto 5 on the PS5. Ghostwire Tokyo was next up, and I'm getting super annoyed with the fact that the lighting is so dark on this camera. Every time I look up, it's gone really dark. Anyway, I'll stop going on about it, people. Yes, Ghostwire Tokyo. This game, if I remember rightly, this is the guy that made Evil Within and all that, isn't it? And I feel like I was a bit disappointed when I finally saw what this game was, and it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just not the sort of game that I would have wanted from him, and it doesn't have any sort of vibe that I'm remotely interested in. So I don't know if it's going to be something that I'll play, but I hope it does well because I like the guy who's making it. But I just, you know, for me, it's not the kind of first person for a start on that sort of thing isn't for me, and I'm just not sure about the whole vibe of the game. It just looks really odd and strange and weird. And I mean, it could well be one of these things that once you actually get hands-on with it, it kind of makes sense, or we see a bit more of what is actually happening around the place. So it makes a bit more sense and gets a bit more interesting to play. But it's not at the moment, or since I saw the first gameplay footage, it's not something that's grabbing my attention at all. So, but anyway, it was good for them to show more off. And hopefully, as we get closer and I hear reviews or whatever, we'll maybe something will give me a buzz for it. So, next up, now this I am looking forward to. Guardians of the Galaxy from Square Enix is coming out on October the 26th. It looks of it. God, my eyes are so blurry. I've had my glasses on all day. Yes, October 26th. This is around the corner, and this game does have me super excited. Like, I feel like I will have a lot of fun with this game. I feel like the way that they've the way that they've created the characters without even looking at the movies, really, I think they've really tried to stick to the graphic novel type stuff, the comic book type stuff, I think. And I feel like they've done a terrific job with it. I mean, when I'm watching that, there's only a little part of me puts a comparison together, but I actually think I prefer what they're doing in the game than on the film. I mean, I love Guardians of the Galaxy. I love Chris Pratt and the actors in the film, but I think I actually prefer seeing it in a graphic sense like that. And they've kept all the humour. The action looked superb, although I don't think we saw any action in this trailer, but we did in the first one. They showed us loads of it. And you definitely only control him, the main character, and I think it's a bit kind of BioWare-y maybe, where you can sort of point and say, go do that, you know, so you can command the team to do stuff, but you stay as the main character. So, and the music. It looks like they've kept all that nostalgic type of 60s, 70s, 80s type music sort of thrown in there. I think I said the humour earlier, the jokes and stuff you hear through it are really, really good. The voice actors and stuff that they've got in doing the job sound perfect for it. I mean, it looks so much fun. It looks like they've really nailed it in every department. So if it's fun to play and it keeps you interested in the gameplay side, I think that's going to be a real winner, that game. It looks superb as well. It looks really, really good. I'm super excited for that. Guardians of the Galaxy, eh? Guardians of the Galaxy. How long have we been going, people? How long have we been going? About half an hour, I think. So, what was next up? I've lost my place again, people. I'm getting so excited. So exciting. Next up was A Vampire, the Masquerade, Blood Hunt. It's coming 2021. I think that was as close as the date came, I think. Now, this actually looks like... Here's the thing, right? If you give me a game where you've got the character in the centre of the screen, over-the-shoulder character in the centre of the screen, immediately my first thought is MMO, online, of some description. And I'm not a fan of it. I don't like the way that looks or plays at all. I never have done. And especially when it's over the shoulder like that, it just seems off. Like, I'd rather be to one side and have the option to jump sides. So, yeah, I mean, it looks fun. It looks like it's got an interesting concept. It looks like the action's good and all that sort of stuff. But it does feel like it's built specifically for MMO gameplay, for multiplayer type stuff. So I don't think it's going to be something I'll get into. However, if you're into MMO stuff, you like fighting other people or with other people, or then it'll be right up your street, I am sure. Someone can correct me in the comments below if I've got that wrong, but I feel like that game is an MMO type thing, or a service, live service, a game as a service. Yeah, you know what I mean. We need a better name for it than that, people. Next up, DeathLoop was shown off again. Now, I don't know, there was a bit of an argument that says DeathLoop didn't need to be there. It's literally coming out on the 14th of this month, so it's days away. What's that, Tuesday maybe here in the UK? Well, it's Tuesday everywhere, I suppose. It's only hours that we differ in, people, but you know what I mean. The release day is the 14th for this country, I think. Yeah, because we're on the 10, 11, 12, 30. Yeah, it's Tuesday. So, yeah, I mean, I think that game's going to do super well. I don't think it's going to be for me. The more I've played the Arcane Studio games, the more I've just kind of... The only one I keep kind of falling back to is Dishonored and Dishonored 2. Every now and then I get into them, and I quite enjoy them, but then something just doesn't keep me hooked. And I got so close to the end of the first one a long time ago, and I never finished it. But it's the same mechanics every time is my problem. You're clearly the same engine, just with the 60s shoved on top of it, or medieval shoved on top of it, or Prey shoved on top of it. It literally feels like I'm playing the same mechanics every time. And maybe someone will argue with me that that's the same in a lot of devs games, but you could argue it's the same with Fallout and Skyrim. But I don't know. There's just something about those games that it just feels like I'm getting the same thing every time. That's all. And that might be fine if you love the same thing that they're doing every time. But as I didn't 100% connect with Dishonored, then everything after it just feels like I'm not 100% connecting with that either. But anyway, it looks like it's got a super cool vibe. I love the fact that it is a 60s sort of vibe to it. And, I think it's going to do super well. It's the last Bethesda game you're ever going to see on a PlayStation, so you might as well make the most of it. Deathloop, 14th of September, people. There was a game called Tchia. This was only kid-like one. And I didn't know what to make of it, really. It was a very... Started off with a little kid playing the guitar with a really annoying tune that I couldn't get out of my head after it had finished. And then there was all this... It looked like your character could sort of energy themselves into other creatures and do things that those creatures would do. You could traverse the world to some degree. It was very sort of Wind Waker type graphics. And it looks super cute and super fun, but I couldn't make out what the hell the game was by just looking at the trailer. So it'll be interesting to see more of what that game's about, but it's absolutely not a game that I'm going to be interested in, but definitely one that I think the kids will be into. Next up, this is where it got into the first party stuff, right? I'm going to have another sip, people, because I can, and it's Friday. Ooh, cheers to you all. So this is where they what happened? I'm trying to remember now what triggered the fact that I knew it was about to go first party. But anyway, it was Herman Hulst came on and said a few words and said, "Woo, here's some first party stuff you can look forward to." And first up the bat was Uncharted Lost Legacy and Uncharted A Thief's End are being remastered for the PS5. Now that's great, and I'm going to be interested to see if there's any kind of cheap upgrade path if you've already got it on PS4, or either of them on PS4. That'd be interesting to see. Hopefully there is a direct upgrade path for no, because it's not. I think they're punting that as a whole new thing. I think it's a proper remaster rather than Anyway, we'll find out. It might be they give us an upgrade path. It might just be like all the others where they've tweaked it so you can play it at 60 FPS. And we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But I think it's quite cool that they've done those two so that they can be even more glorious on the PlayStation 5. And I will play Uncharted 4 again on the PlayStation 5 if that comes out, and it's super glorious. I love it. I thought Lost Legacy was actually better than Uncharted 4. So I will play Lost Legacy again. I thought it was a really fun game. The only thing that I frustrated me a little bit about Lost Legacy, and I understand it wasn't a full-on Uncharted game, but it was like you had the Middle East bit at the beginning, and then it was like all that jungle area. Like you didn't go to any other places, so you're kind of limited to the one environment. Whereas with Uncharted and Tomb Raider, you get to hop around all over the globe and see different environments and stuff. So it's the only thing small tiny thing that frustrated me about Lost Legacy, but it was a great game. It was really good, and I think it was better than Uncharted 4 because they kept it tight. They opened it up when they needed to. It just felt far more Uncharted than Uncharted 4 did. There was no The Last of Us in Lost Legacy. It was an Uncharted game. So they kicked off with that. Then there was this trailer of this guy sitting. Just see this big guy sitting at a bar, music playing, typical American sort of working man's bar type of thing. And will I say that anymore? Is it working person's bar? I don't know. You know what I mean. And he's sitting there and there's music playing. Guy's sort of in the background, like quite clearly wanting to noise him up, starts walking towards him with this knife. And then it was a really short trailer. There was no gameplay. It was just this sort of movie trailer type thing that they'd done in graphics. And at the end, it was like, just as the guy's walking up behind him with a knife, you see him clench his fist and the Wolverine claws come out. And then it's Insomniac are basically making a Wolverine game. So you can expect a similar class of game as you've got with Spider-Man, with Wolverine as the main character. So that's going to be super exciting to see what they do with that character. And I think that got quite a lot of people buzzing because it came out of nowhere. I didn't see that rumoured at all. I didn't see anything from this showcase rumoured. They kept it really tight-lipped. It was very, very cool. So it's super exciting. Insomniac seem to be just Ubering it at the minute. Because, I don't know if we went straight into it or not. I've lost my place again. Wolverine, where are you? Yeah, well, yes, because we'll talk about Spider-Man in a minute. So, and Insomniac seem to be just on fire on all cylinders. Just launched Ratchet and Clank: A Rift Apart. They've got the Wolverine game out, and we'll talk about Spider-Man in a minute. Next up was Gran Turismo 7, which was kind of a given that it was going to be there, because that game is in full thrust. Not that I was trying to make a pun, but it is in full throttle. Thank you. And I think we're going to see more and more and more of it as we keep going. And I mean, it looks gorgeous. I don't play driving games, so I don't know that I'll ever play the game. But for those driving enthusiasts out there, I think it certainly looks like it's going to compete head on with Forza Motorsport, most definitely. And it'll be interesting to see how it compares with Forza Motorsport now that they're doing a proper Gran Turismo, next game, Gran Turismo 7. So yeah, but it looks super, super good. It's always difficult to make a driving game look fun because it's like there's only so many different ways you see a car moving around a track. So the trick is to give it good music and, keep flipping from environment to environment. They seem to do all of that. And it looks super pretty. I mean, the cars look amazing. The environments look amazing. And they were talking about, in the post-show thing that happened afterwards, which was about 10 minutes long, they were talking about how amazing the haptic feedback feels on the controllers when you're pulling around a tight corner. You can feel where the strain of the car is as you're coming around the bends and all that sort of stuff. So the realism of driving the car has got a whole new dynamic to it. And I'm sure they've got 3D audio going on in there as well. So you're going to have all the noises coming from all the right places. It's going to be super cool to see how that taps into the emotions of driving a car. I think it's going to be fantastic. Gran Turismo 7 and March 2022, it got a date. So back to Insomniac, who then pitched up with it. I mean, I couldn't believe it was there that quickly, but suddenly you see Spider-Man and you hear a voice talking first. It turns out to be Venom, and you see Spider-Man. Now, I was a bit confused because I haven't played Miles Morales, but I feel like it was Spider-Man. I feel like it was both the Spider-Men, basically, sort of messing about, fighting things, and then Venom sort of pounces out. And I think that's obviously the whole story of the game is taking on Venom and all that sort of stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see. without any shadow of a doubt, that game is going to be another hit. They can't do much wrong with Spider-Man. Now they've got all the mechanics in place. Now they've got that engine in place. It's just, but they must have multiple teams there now doing multiple things, because, you know, Ratchet and Clank, Wolverine, and Spider-Man all on the go at the same time. Now you could argue that Ratchet and Clank's done, so that team might be working on Wolverine, but they do tend to support games for a fair while after they've launched. So yeah, I don't know. It sounds like they've got multiple teams. That said, they're a massive studio now. They've got PlayStation. They're a PlayStation studio. They've got a lot of funding behind them. Not that they needed it, but yeah, super exciting. Really good to see Spider-Man 2. But the problem is, I still haven't finished Spider-Man. There's something, again, not hooking me into that game like the Batman ones did. It's just me. I understand that. I get it. Everyone seems to be loving that Spider-Man game. And I can't find anything wrong to fault with it. It's just something about it's not hooking me in. And I don't know if it's because I'm spending too much time trying to do all of the open world stuff, and not, maybe I should just play the story and that be it. And maybe I'll enjoy it that way. So, you know, see how we go. I'll get back to it at some point. I think it's been 60 FPS as well, hasn't it? So there's a bit of an excuse to go back. So, and then we came to the big climax, people, because everybody loves a big climax, don't you? Thank you. I love a big climax. I don't know anybody else. God of War Ragnarok. Ragnarok even, not Ragnarok. That's a whole different thing. God of War Ragnarok finally got a trailer, a proper one. And it was a gameplay trailer as well. Now, this looks superb. Now, the nice thing about this is, right, now you can sit and you can argue, say, oh, well, if they hadn't built it for PS4 as well, they could have made it look, oh, this better and that better, and done it bigger. And ooh. The point here is, though, that for me, with a game like God of War, which isn't that, you know, it's not that long ago since we got the first one, I'd like it to be something that feels continuous, that I'm literally moving into the next part of the game without feeling like the characters all look different, the visuals all look different. You know, when you watch this trailer, you feel like you're stepping out of game 1 into game 2 and carrying this story on. And for me, that's what I want it to feel like. Now, the first one, the God of War game, has now got, the new God of War game, has now got 60 FPS patch as well. So, you know, I'm going to go back and I'm going to play that game again. It was superb, that game. I'm going to go back and play it again now. It's got the 60 FPS patch. I'd be tempted to do a playthrough of that, you know, on the channel. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see that. But yeah, I'm super excited to go back and play it again before the next one comes out. They didn't give us a date or even a year at the moment, but it does look pretty far on, people, I have to say, from looking at everything that we saw. I've lost track of my thought there, people. Yeah, I want to go back and play the original, and then I can move straight, and then from that I'll just step straight into the other one. I don't think there's a huge amount that they could have done with the way that game's been built to not do it for PlayStation 4. Like, why would you not? There's that many millions of PlayStation 4s out there, or PlayStation 4 Pros. Like, just do a version for it. It's not the end of the world. They're clearly making it on the same engine. They've clearly got the ability to give us the 60 FPS and the 1440p for that mode if we want it for the PlayStation 5. And if you want to play it at 4K 30, then fine, do that. But, you know, all the options are there. I don't feel like I'm losing anything from that game not being built just for a PlayStation 5. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, a game like that can cope with that because it's not a massive open world. It is, you know, it feels open in places, but it's still linear. It's really the massive open world type games I think can benefit more from the, you know, just making them for PlayStation 5 and stuff. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I kind of feel. I mean, there will come a point where developers do not want to have to step backward. And clearly there are games that just couldn't cope going backwards. Like Jedi Fallen Order just hated the original one, the original Xbox One, and didn't particularly like the original PlayStation 4 much either. But you play that on the new consoles, or even on a PlayStation 4 Pro or an Xbox One X, that game is great. So there's clearly limitations. There's clearly things that they struggle with as devs. But we already know that God of War played superbly on the PlayStation. Well, it certainly played on the PlayStation 4 Pro, which is what I had. It played superbly. So I've got no problem with them, you know, making it for the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. PS5, sorry. Getting confused. Too many PlayStations, people. So, yeah, I mean, I'd written down returning characters, the sort of the witchy type woman was back in it. The head guy gets his head lopped off. He's back in it. The Scottish guy. Yeah, there was traversal via ice as well as boat this time. The boat was back in the trailer as well, but he was traversing around on some. I think it was pulled by dogs, a sleigh with dogs, wasn't it? Traveling around like that. So that was quite cool. They've introduced that. The action looked like it's been brought forward. Like you've got your double change, you've got your throwing axe again that returns to you and all that sort of stuff. Thor is in this game. We didn't see a huge amount of him, but he's nothing like the Thor in the in the Marvel stuff. The post show guy was saying this is a proper full on raw Thor. This, so that's going to be interesting to see how that character pans out. This is the finale of this story. From what they said that this was the finale to this particular chapter, the Nordic chapter, I think they said, or the Nordic chapter of God of War. So it could be they come back to God of War, but it won't be that Nordic area that they're stepping into. So that's quite an interesting one, because along with Aaron, I thought, yeah, this could be a trilogy, but they've decided to go with a double on that one, which is, I think that's probably quite a good thing. You know, they've clearly had a story to tell, and they're going to see it through in the two games. And from what they were saying in post-show, they won't tell us what they're on with, but Cory Barlog, who was the guy who directed the first one and is the creative director on this one, was saying that they're on with so much exciting stuff that they can't talk about at the minute, but, you know, later, people, once God of War's dealt with. Yeah, a big character picked up at the end called Tchia, I think he was called. They talk about him a little bit, and then suddenly they walk into a room and there he is, and he stands up and he's huge. He's like a giant compared to the main character. So yeah, so it looks superb. How long are we going for? Been going for a while now, people. 50 minutes or so. Yeah, so the whole show, that was the big finale, and then just after that it said more blah in 10.9.876 blah. I went straight into this post-show thing where they interviewed the director. Sorry, I'm forgetting his name. I apologise to you, my friend. The director of God of War Ragnarok and Cory Barlog, but Cory Barlog didn't say a lot. He was just kind of there beside the guy who's actually directing it, and they talked to Herman Host again about the game, his hands-on experience with some of the games, and a few little bits like that went on. It was quite a nice little short, tight post thing, which I think worked quite well. It was quite nice just to have a little bit of extra info from the devs and stuff, and I thought it was a great show. I actually put that phone down. I thought I did have a couple of points of... Oh, that was the podcast one. Yeah, I'd written a few pointers down before the show hit. Yeah, there was a couple of bits of news. Right, okay, I'm going to forget about the first one because I can't remember anything about it now that I've actually got it on my list, and maybe I'll remember to talk about it another time. Yeah, there was a to do with Forbidden West, because they were asking people to... The upgrade path was expensive or something. So Forbidden West, Horizon Forbidden West, upgrade path, no cost, plus for... Right, so there's no cost to upgrading to Horizon Forbidden West from the PlayStation 4 version if you move consoles later. But in general, the first party upgrade path will be $10 to go from a PS4 to a PS5 version. So I think that's fairly decent. But the same token, I don't think Xbox are charging you anything most of the time. You just get an update for the game, and you know, because they're not treating their games as different versions at the moment. They're just saying that's the version of the game, and it's either been enhanced or it hasn't been enhanced. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Destiny is now cross-play and cross-chat. I think that's cool. I love the more I think. I mean, I don't do a lot of online stuff, but I think it's very rare that I do any online stuff. But I think the fact that big games like that, you can now, it doesn't matter if your mate's on a PC, on a PS4, on an Xbox, just open a chat and you can go. You know, you can just chat while you're playing. And I think that's fantastic. Like, no more. The more we get that in games, the better. And get rid of all of this. Like, well, I can't play with you or chat to you because I'm on this console and you're on that console or you're on a PC. So I think it's wonderful that we're starting to get a lot more of this cross chat and cross play stuff. So bravo to everyone involved in making those sort of things work. Alan Wake was on this list, but we've talked about it already. And BioWare are apparently moving back to the Unreal Engine from the Frostbite engine for Mass Effect. So it's going to be interesting to see, because they used the Frostbite engine for Andromeda, which was the one that people really hated on. I mean, it wasn't... It had a lot of issues when it came out. It still had a lot of heart in it, and it still had a lot of love in it. You could tell that the developers put a lot of work into it, and it still had fun sides to it. I thought the traversal and actiony bits were actually really, really good fun. The story didn't capture me much. The environment, like what you had to do in the world, didn't capture me much. It became a bit laborious quite quickly. I've never got further than the first planet, I don't think, in that game. Or the first proper planet where you sort of land and you have to go and do stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think moving back to Unreal Engine 5, I think BioWare originally used Unreal Engine when they did the original Mass Effects. So it was interesting that they're moving back to it. Unreal Engine 5 is going to be a massive, massive deal without any shadow of a doubt. All the things we've seen from it so far look spectacular. Well, there you are, people. That is all I have for you. It was a fantastic showcase. I really loved watching it. Was it the best showcase I've ever seen? No. But it was great, and I wasn't disappointed with any of it. I thought it all looked great. There were some things I expected. There was some things that I was like, holy shit, I didn't expect to see that. But there was no, I say holy shit, but there was no holy shit moment. Not for me, anyway. Like there's a very few things that will make me do that. If I'd heard The Last of Us music, I would probably have said holy shit really loudly. Anything Naughty Dog would probably make me do that. But there you are. Fantastic showcase nonetheless. There you are, people. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the PlayStation Showcase. And if you disagree with anything I've been saying or agree with anything I've been saying, which is highly unlikely because no one agrees with me about anything. But I stand alone, people, quite a lot of the time. It has been, yes it has, an honour and a privilege serving for you in this podcast of mine today, and I shall catch you all in the next one, folks. Take it easy. Bye.